Are you looking to upgrade your triggers? I'm going to show you the Bix and Andy competition single stage and two stage triggers and see if they're the right fit for your new rig. So here we have it. This is the Bix and Andy competition trigger. It has been just a hallmark of the F-class scene for as long as I've been in F-class, honestly. I mean, it's been around for a while. Ball bearing, I mean, I'll show you all the internals in a minute, but really great triggers. They also have a two-stage competition trigger. I'll kind of tell you about those in a minute as well. So the first thing to know about the Bix and Andy competition triggers is that they utilize a ball bearing system. It's one of the reasons they're so smooth, so crisp, and so reliable. Another really great thing about the competition triggers is that they are fully user serviceable and they're designed to be that way. And I kind of started off with that only because I've used other triggers that have literally like warranty stickers, don't break, will void warranty. There's no way to clean them if something gets in there. And in theory, if you're taking proper care of your triggers, nothing should get in there. But I cannot tell you how many times I've been to matches, and I know plenty of PRS guys that have the same problem, dirt, dust, mud, snow, whatever it is. Stuff just finds a way down in here. And obviously this is open from the top. If something gets in through your action, it can get down past the sear and down into the trigger. I've known people to try to, weatherproof their triggers, but the bottom line is there's going to be a time where you need to service it, and Bix and Andy makes it really easy. And the way they do that is they actually have, let me see if I can, it's going to be tough to show you here, but over here you have jack screws. So there's one here and then there's one up here. And what those are going to do is they're going to let you take these screws out and then simply insert your Allen wrench and you start tightening and it pushes this plate off. Much better option than other triggers I've used where I have to shove a knife or a razor blade or something in there and kind of wiggle it open. So these literally jack the top plate off. You can then remove everything that is in here and clean it in an alcohol solution, whatever it is that you want to do, and reassemble it. One little bit of advice though, and I don't care what trigger this is, every time I open up a trigger, no matter how familiar I am with it, I always take a couple pictures with my cell phone. I'll take a picture of it open. If there's any springs that are kind of hidden as I remove those, I'll take a picture of where those were, what length they were, what hole they went in. Inside a trigger, you're going to have 2 or 3 springs that do look pretty similar. So making sure you know the orientation, anything with the sear, lower sear, any of the engagements inside, it's really important that you understand where everything goes. So take some pictures. It's just the easiest thing to do. In a perfect world, you could set up a camera and video yourself doing it, but even that, honestly, you're at a distance. I think that taking some up-close photos is really your best bet. And you'll notice this trigger, my competition trigger, is in a trigger hanger, and this is for my board in action here. And then you will see that in my Rimex, I have the 2-stage, and that is a pin trigger, which is why I don't have it out to show you because I don't feel like knocking it out. I would say, if you have a custom action and minus Defiance, you'll be using some kind of a trigger hanger, at least as far as I'm aware of. I think almost everybody uses them except Defiance. Defiance is going to be a pinned action similar to what I've got here on this Rimex. The trigger hanger is, I would say, a little bit of an advantage for competition shooters, especially because I have seen countless times a trigger go down of any kind and somebody has an extra in their bag, and because it is on a hanger, they can simply pull off their stock. In some cases, they can actually remove the trigger hanger without taking the stock off and then screw a new trigger back on, and Bob's your uncle, you're done, ready to go. But extreme circumstances. So we are going to talk about how to set the competition triggers, and this is something where I think there's not bad information, but I'm just going to show you better information, at least as far as I think. But there's 2 basic ways to do it, and I'm going to screw my trigger hanger back on here. I want to do that without any pressure being put onto my sear. So we're going to snug that up. Bad things can happen if you try installing a trigger with your bolt in all the way. You're going to have pressure being applied to the sear. It's going to put pressure on your trigger hanger. You could potentially strip a thread. Don't try doing that. Just pull your bolt out a little bit, disengage everything, tighten it down. You're good to go. Now, the conventional way that you hear most people say how they set their sear engagement is that they're going to do this. They're going to tighten it down until that pops, right? You're decocking the bolt. And then they go, well, we're just going to turn this back half a turn, and now we should have really good sear engagement. Well, both of these processes are a little bit flawed. Now, functionally, yeah, you'll probably get away with that. But if we're really trying to optimize these triggers, and I mean, we're talking really expensive guns in high-level competitions, whether it's PRS, or F-class, you really want to get your sear engagement right. And because when we are inserting this Allen wrench and turning, twisting, pushing, we are affecting the trigger's operation. And what that can do is that can lead to a situation where you really don't know what the actual sear engagement is. So here's what, at least I've seen and I feel and I've learned, is the best way to set your sear engagement. So we're going to set it till it pops. Okay. And then we're going to go a little bit more down. And the weird thing is, if you're looking at the trigger from the side, we are screwing down the sear engagement, which actually lessens the sear engagement on contact. So we're sending the screw down, which lessens the sear engagement. So it's an opposite, kind of an opposite reaction. You would probably naturally think if I screw it down, I'm pushing the sear out. That's not what's happening here at all. You're actually cantilevering it a little bit. Sorry, I screwed that one up. So we have now made it so that this bolt decocks every time, and you can hear it. So on your bolt, you will have some mechanism that shows you. On a board in here is this entire mechanism will decock. If I have a bat, it's a smaller button on the back, but there is going to be a way for you to know if you don't feel that your bolt is decocked, and I can feel that there is an empty hole back here where my firing pin is now fallen. So what am I going to do? Well, now I want to slowly take the sear screw out until, so that decocked still. And we're just working very slowly. We're pulling out the Allen wrench. We are then putting the bolt in, and we're waiting till we get sear engagement. So now I'm getting sear engagement. Okay. And you might think, well, now I'm really right there. I'm right on a perfect edge. Well, I'm doing a very controlled sear engagement. Closing the bolt slowly. It's allowing the two edges to meet up, very nicely. What we want to do now is we want to test it under a kind of a slapping cock. So we want to really get that firing pin to jump over that sear. So let's see if we can get that done. Oh, there it was. Okay, listen. And you can hear that firing pin's falling real fast. So now we're going to back this out a little bit more. And we're doing very small turns. Okay, so slow engagement, I'm always going to test that first. And we're still getting firing pin fall. Nope, there it was again. And it might take, I usually will do 5 to 10 attempts because it's not always going to happen on the first try. And we're doing, about 1/8 of a turn every time. There's 4, 5, 6. So I feel really good. Now, what this tells me is because we've taken our time, this is right where the sear engagement is optimized. But I'm not going to lie, I usually will take it just a turn past that so that I know I absolutely have no chance of a sear jump. And that's it. Now we are good to go. So let me put this aside for a second. And we'll take a look at the two-stage trigger. Two-stage trigger is going to be the same on the inside. The biggest difference is, well, I shouldn't say it's the same. It's not the same because of the two-stage action, but same basic mechanism. And we'll show you that in a minute here. The biggest difference is going to be in how the trigger actually functions and how you can adjust it. So the first thing to notice on this one is that there's this little bar at the bottom. right here. And that bar has adjustment screws, and that is actually going to be your first stage, second stage on your trigger pull. And it makes it really easy to set it up exactly the way you want it. I have seen some two-stage triggers where you have minimal adjustment, or maybe you can only adjust the first or the second. This one here, it gives you full adjustment, makes it really nice in terms of getting it set. And because the trigger shoe slides on, you can actually move that front to back to really optimize your position there. So for a lot of people who really like using a two-stage trigger, I think this is going to really fit the bill for you because you get a ton of adjustment in it. And again, this is on my rimfire, so I've only got it set so that it is engaging. Obviously, it just needs to engage the sear, and then it's going to fall. There's nothing else that's in there. Another thing about the Bix and Andy competition triggers is that there are a variety of sears, and if you call and tell them which action you are planning on putting it in, they can help make sure that you get really the optimized sear. Now, off the shelf, the competition triggers are going to work in 99.9% of actions, but you may be able to sort of tune it just a little bit better with a different sear in there. So it wouldn't hurt to call the guys at Bullet Central and see what they have to say about that. So let's take a look inside of the trigger, and I'm going to show you just on a diagram here because it's easier than trying to pull one of these open on camera. Let's take a look at the standard single stage competition, and I will show you what that looks like inside. So let's take a look. Looks like inside. So this is the single stage comp trigger, and let me zoom in a little bit for you here. And what you can see is you've got this ball bearing setup here, you've got your upper sear, and then your sear engagement here, and then the lower sear. And the lower sear is what we are setting with that screw that we screw in and out, and then you've got the transfer bar here. So anyway, you can see it's a really, really nice, simple setup inside. This is a good reference if you ever need to put it back together and forgot to take a picture. The only real things you want to watch for is obviously a spring up here, and you want to watch for the trigger spring down here. And this is, if you remember, there's a hole on the bottom side that you're going to be adjusting for the pull weight. And also that is where you can replace that spring as well. So it's a simple mechanism. It's easy to pull these parts out, put them in some alcohol, clean them off, clean out the assembly, put it back together, and you are good to go. Right here, by the way, we talked about those jack screws. There's the front side of one jack screw and the front side of the other jack screw. So again, just make sure that you recess those back out so that the cover can go back on here. And it's just that simple. Let's go ahead and take a look inside of the two-stage just for fun. Peek inside of the two-stage. So let's go ahead and zoom in. Now you can see here, this is that shoe adjustment, and there are, we saw on the underside of this bar, there's a spring on this side, or a set screw for a spring on this side and this side to set the first and second stage on it. Other than that, it is very almost identical inside here. Really what you're getting is the two-stage ability to set, first stage, second stage, and then you still have this lower sear engagement, transfer bar, everything's moving off these ball bearings. It's really, you're getting that competition trigger with, the ability to have the two-stage. So that's really all there is to it. You can obviously see there's a slight difference here with where you're setting the sear engagement versus on the single stage. It's over here more in the center, or not center, but off the edge. But internally, very, very similar. So let's get back to the shop here. All right, so now you kind of get an idea. Why is the Bix and Andy so unique? You saw the ball bearings, you saw how everything works together in there, and it really is a cool trigger. Mixed with the fact that it is fully user serviceable makes it a fantastic choice. As I've told people before, if you are looking for something other than a competition trigger, Bix and Andy does make like a Dakota line for hunting, which goes heavier. I should mention that the single stage competition goes from a stated, so this is their stated numbers, 0.2 ounces to 1.5 pounds on the comp, and on the 2-stage, you are looking at 1 ounce to 1.1. Again, they can't be the same because of how the mechanisms work in there, but those are definitely both going to be in the range of what anybody looking to do competition is going to want. Personally, I tend to shoot about a 4-ounce trigger. I used to shoot a very light trigger. I have simply found that for my purposes and how I shoot with my shaking and everything like that, that when I went heavier, I was actually getting some better results. So don't be afraid to play with it. Just because you hear somebody say, well, I shoot a 1-ounce trigger, that doesn't mean that you need to shoot a 1-ounce trigger, and that's where having the adjustability really comes in huge. I'm going to get these guys bolted back into their bodies. We're going to take them out to the range. We're going to do just a little bit of shooting. I'll show you the triggers in action, and then we'll come back here and just do a quick wrap-up. And this is it. So this is the single stage competition. It's here in my Borden and Dima combo. And we're just going to have some fun over here. You can see it's just a really nice, crisp break. And let's see, we'll zoom in just a little. So this is not a verified load, but still shooting nice. I'll throw a few more through here. One funky little flyer there, but otherwise not bad considering it's not really any load development, so we'll take it. But that just gives you a nice idea of where this thing's breaking. I mean, you can see if I'm not shooting here. Nice and smooth. All right, so that's not bad for 3 shots. We'll definitely take that. Trigger is really nice. So we're going to play around with the 2-stage that's on my Rim-X now. And you will see if we dry fire it here, that this one, if you remember, we have to take up the slack, and then it's going to break. So slack, break. And no, I'm not hurting my 22 by doing this. All right, so there we go. Now, I don't have a trigger cam on this one, but you guys will be able to watch it break. All right, here we go. So again, this one, we're going to take up the slack. Slack and break. There we go. Slack. So you see that there? That's all slack. So again, just a different style of shooting. Some people really like a single stage, some people really like a 2-stage. either way, Bix and Andy has you covered. So let's head on back to the shop. There we have it. Those are the Bix and Andy comp and two-stage comp triggers. You saw how they worked. I mean, the bottom line is I know a ton of people. In fact, it's probably the most prolific trigger in F-Class, and it's for good reason. It works, it's reliable, it's smooth, it's crisp, it's got a great break, and people love it, and it's available. You can buy them at Bullet Central, pick them up easy. Pick out whatever you need. If you need something with a safety, they have them with safety, no safety, two-stage like you saw. Whatever you need, it's there for you. But, again, it's a great trigger. If you're looking to upgrade, I would definitely consider them. And that's it. All I can say is get out and shoot. Have a good one. We'll talk later.